Today, we fly casual. Any topic we want, we talk about. You're joining us. Thank you for checking out the Rebel Scum podcast. I'm James right here. Joining me today, we got a lot of fun. We got executive producer Heidi Feder up top, and Darth Ward makes his triumphant return. Rob McDonald is here. Rob, Heidi, how you two doing?
Good.
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be back on the channel again, ready to talk some Star Wars. You might have seen me a few times on Digital Charcuterie, but I am back. I am back here on Rebel Scum for this Wednesday.
All right.
We got a bunch of topics to talk about, but nothing really planned. This is off the cuff, having a lot of fun, just chatting away, discussing Star Wars on a little thing we call Flying Casual that we do. It's live. You have something you want us to talk about, let us know. Heidi has something she wants to talk about. And Rob has not told us on this channel yet his thoughts of the Acolyte. I didn't tell him he'd have to, but I want to hear his overall thoughts of the Acolyte. Sir, what did you think of that show? Are you looking forward to season 2? Will there be a season 2? And did you order a Pip Funko Pop yet?
Basil, of course. I got to get a Basil.
I would get
Pop,
Basil.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think ultimately what the show kind of lied is that I will never say that the show didn't have my interest or my curiosity. It always had my curiosity, especially because the way they set it up and the questions that they asked and the stuff that they were going to reveal. I was interested. I was interested in what it was going to be. My main issue was that what they revealed wasn't all that mind-blowing to me, at least. And I had issues with the characters. I started liking a bunch of the characters, but towards the end, I was kind of off the boat with these characters. I like to say that when I went to TV broadcasting school, one of the projects that we had was called was in the writing class. And the writing class, one of the things that we were told to do was write an episode of your favorite sitcom. It could be whatever it was. You just write an episode of your favorite sitcom. So I chose an episode, and then we did our project, and then we came back to it a month later, and we were told to basically relook at our little project and asked, were these characters the same as the ones that you're a fan of, as the ones that you're a big fan of on there? And that's where another one of my big problems with the Acolyte lied. It was that I wasn't sure I understood the characters because the characters kept on making different decisions at different moments, and I thought they were poor characters ultimately. So yeah, for me, it's unfortunately one of the worst Star Wars related things that I've ever watched. That's my opinion. Wow. It's great when people like it more, but yeah, for me, it did not work at all. And there was the final 2 episodes more or less kind of put the nail in that coffin, because whatever they were hooking me on, they resolved in a not so satisfying way, in my opinion. So will there be a season 2? I don't know. That's up to Disney and whether they want to do it. Do I want a season 2? Not really.
Heidi, we've talked about this, so if you have nothing you want to add to it, that's fine. We don't need to go any further, because it's old also.
I know. I mean, like I said, I brought this up earlier, and I just dawned on me today that they were never shocked that this red lightsaber showed up out of nowhere. They just said, "Oh my God, is that a Sith? Is that Dark Jedi?" Or, "Hey, I didn't know they came in that color." I mean, they should have been shocked.
That's a valid point, though, because he's like Saul is kind of shocked that there's like a rogue Jedi trying to kill the Jedi, and he goes, "What are you?" And he goes, "Oh, you might call me a Sith." But there's never like a question of, why is your lightsaber red? Or they haven't heard tales of like the dark side users using red lightsabers or something. And even at the end, when the lightsaber turns red, there's never like, oh, I mean, I guess Saul's dead at that. No, that's what killed. But it's just like they don't. You're right. There's no. It's almost. I think the issue is, Heidi, is the writers and the showrunners and the producer and everybody involved knew what a red lightsaber was, and so it's just assumed that everybody in the world knows what it is, even though you're right, they probably don't, or it's probably a legend, and it's probably more of a legend than Darth Plagueis is a legend in Revenge of the Sith. Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that viewpoint because I forget how they say how many years has it been that Sith were gone at that point, but
Thousands.
in general, yeah. So there you go. It's like you could hear about certain things, you could hear about certain parts of it, but at that point, it's just so far in the distant past that people might not be looking into it or speaking about it as often. So people, as many people, might not be aware about red lightsabers. That's maybe what I kind of see the point of what James said there.
I like the show. I mean, it's not my favorite. I would say I like it more than Obi-Wan or Ahsoka, but and I don't mean to nitpick. It's just something that I thought of it today. And I mean, Saul's response is, "Oh, you're not a Jedi, but you have a Jedi weapon." And wait a minute, I've never seen a red lightsaber before. I I don't know. I'm just nitpicking, and it's always easier to play Monday morning quarterback.
No, yeah, and I think not necessarily nitpicking or like thinking about details of certain things that you may perhaps like or dislike, or point out things that you like about things that you dislike. I think is just healthy in general, and I don't think it necessarily means that you're tearing something apart.
I mean, I've been watching a month. All of a sudden, it just popped in my head. Wait a minute, why were they shocked by red lightsaber?
I think that speaks to a fault of a lot of the Star Wars that we've gotten on Disney Plus as of late, and I think a lot of people would lump in Rise of Skywalker with that. Is it feels like just kind of lazy, lackadaisical writing. Like it's just kind of like get it on there, you know. It's like there's moments in this show and there's moments in Obi-Wan, and I'm just like, these are great. Like you have great ideas, but they're not. There's just not like a follow through on them. It's like there's great ideas, and they're just kind of like, well, we got to get it done, and throw it on there. And we only have 8 episodes for whatever reason. We only have 6 episodes for whatever reason. And instead of developing, here's the thing. So I'm watching this the new Batman show, Rob, the Caped Crusade. I don't know, Heidi, if you've seen it, but I know Rob has seen it. I know it's getting a lot of hate online. But do you know what no one is complaining about with this show? The episodes are 22 minutes long, and everything feels way more fleshed out in every episode than anything we've gotten in a 30-minute episode of the last few Star Wars projects. Like, no one's complaining about the length of these episodes. They're complaining about other things, rightly or wrongly, but the length is not an issue. But yet, for some reason, on these Star Wars shows, they can't figure out how to do character development in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 20, whatever they have in 8 episodes. But this show, I think, has done a pretty good job of character. Like half the characters are in 1 episode only. And I feel like they're fleshed out more than we got 8 episodes of twins in this one. I think that's one of the issues is maybe hire writers that know how to do a story in 20, 30 minutes instead of people, they're handcuffing themselves to whatever for no reason. And it's just not great. And now Disney Plus is upping their price again because, it's got to be more expensive. And I already canceled it. I was like, see you later. I have it until like the 14th or something. But that's like, you watch these other shows and you're like 22 minutes isn't an issue. But these shows are 30, 40 minutes. And it's like nothing happened or, it started to happen and then it just stopped short.
Well, I mean, I guess to go back on the original topic we were going to go on, you were talking about Rise of Skywalker. I mean, I had fun watching the movie. I know that a lot of people hated it. I didn't hate it. I didn't go to watch Shakespeare. I went to watch a fun movie, and I saw a fun movie. But if you look back on it, it's just pretty much fan service. The movie, and they just crammed fan service into this film, and I think a lot of times, and George Lucas had the same issue with the prequels. They just crammed too much information into 3 movies. And I kind of wish Last Jedi had been its own thing. And I know we've talked about this. And then there would have been either Abrams did an episode 8 on his own, or Rise of Skywalker was episode 8 and there was an episode 9. And another problem with Rise of Skywalker, that was supposed to be Princess Leia's movie. Unfortunately, Terry Fisher died before it could be made, and so all of her parts were in just flashbacks, and it was kind of hard to get around.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it might maybe like in general when you're speaking to James and what you're saying about their episodes and the way they constructed the Acolyte. It almost seems like a thing across all Disney Plus shows in general, because there are very few Disney Plus shows, even when you go into the Marvel content or any of the Star Wars stuff. A lot of theirs, they don't do the an hour and 20-minute episodes that you get with something like House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones used to, or HBO content in general. They just don't seem to do that. They just seem to kind of be like, okay, we're doing 6 episodes. It's going to be kind of the script for a 2-hour movie, but we're going to stretch it out to 3.5 hours, 4 hours, or however long the 6 episodes winds up going for, and just seems to lack a lot of like 3-act structure to each of their episodes, because so many of their episodes just end and then that's it. You don't get a proper resolution really for a lot of these episodes. It's over. The next episode is going to be next week and it'll continue the story. That's what it feels like, more or less. And like when you go into other shows, like I mentioned, House of the Dragon, you talk about a show that has, an A story, a B story, a C story, a D story. Like there's so many things that they're juggling and telling you and giving you a complete story, at least in one episode. And that's just what I think Disney Plus shows seem to lack a little bit. And that's something that you pointed out, a 22-minute show in Cape Crusader that's able to do that. And yeah, perhaps their episodes are more standalone than the Acolyte or a lot of these other Star Wars shows are. But still, regardless, they can still tell you a complete story in 22 minutes that a lot of Disney Plus shows, Star Wars shows, have failed to do.
Like
Yeah.
Andor, I'm sorry. I was
No,
say,
go on,
like,
Heidi.
Andor I thought was brilliant. That was amazing. That was incredible. Even if you don't like sci-fi or Star Wars, anyone who appreciates a good story should appreciate Andor. Here's the thing: the guy who did it. First of all, it was the most un-Star Wars Star Wars show. I mean, there were Easter eggs in the antique store, but for the most part, there was no fan service, no Easter eggs. In fact, the guy who did it, he angered fans because he said, it'd be perfect for Star Wars, Natalie Portman, not realizing that Natalie Portman had already been in Star Wars. But the point is, all he wanted to do was do a good show. He didn't care about fan service or Easter eggs. He just did an amazing show. And I always assumed that season 2 of The Mandalorian would be my favorite Disney Plus show, and just Andor just blew me away. It was just amazing. It took Star Wars to another level we were never expecting.
Yeah, and there's some exceptions to the rule of what I mentioned. Of course, Andor is one. Mandalorian has been one for the most part too. They've been able to tell standalone stories in each episodes, and maybe not necessarily B, C, and D storylines like I mentioned that other shows seem to do, but in general, yeah, Andor is doing did a really good job of that without having to even jingle the keys and say, look, there's Ki-Adi-Mundi, and at the end, oh, here's Yoda at the end. They were just like, no, this is a prequel to Rogue One, but that's what the story is. And yeah, you'll get more of the characters building to Rogue One, as they've already announced for season 2. But for the most part, they just focused on telling a really great story within each episode and building throughout its 9 episodes, I believe it was, right?
How did you watch Game of Thrones?
I watched the first episode and it just looked like porn to me. So it turned out.
Okay, well, Rob, you watch Game of Thrones and the spin-off and all that stuff. I don't watch it either. I watched the first season, I think. But I want to bring this up. So you've mentioned how long are the episodes of House of Dragon and Game of Thrones typically?
Like, if you're talking about this most recent season of House of Dragon, like if I'm guessing,
yeah, we'll go most recent, sure.
If I'm guessing, I think their shortest episode was probably like an hour, just over an hour.
And the finale was a disappointment from what I hear. It was like nothing happened.
I wouldn't say nothing happened. It was just they're building to something and crescendoing to something that didn't ultimately leave as a satisfying finale is what I would say. I'd say they resolved a few storylines that they were setting up throughout that season, but they didn't close things off, I think, as a lot of seasons of Game of Thrones did. Game of Thrones would typically do something big for one of the storylines in the finale to move this next story forward into next season.
Okay, and I had one more thing I wanted to say. How did it look good? Like, did it always look good?
I thought
How many
so.
and how many episodes were there? 8?
There's 8 episodes of it. Yeah. And thanks for Sooner Thrawn mentioning that Andor had 12 episodes. I forgot. They were in 3 episode chunks. I just, I misremembered that there was a 4th episode chunk.
So, okay. So the reason why I'm asking all this is because I just Googled, which is a website or a search engine. Nobody knows what Google is. And I typed in the budget for House of Dragon and Andor. We all know Acolyte was $180 million. Okay. So I didn't put that in because that's the newest one. So Acolyte was $180 million, 8 episodes. I haven't seen House of Dragon. These episodes are all 30 minutes long. House of Dragon, you're saying, is like an hour long an episode, and House of Dragon looks better, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Unsightly. I'll say this: they had certain things that may have not looked right to the eye, but there was a specific storyline that they kept going forward, where it's like one character is basically in a fever dream the whole season, and he's constantly seeing visions and things like that, and that's where I thought some of the stuff looked off, but that might have been by design. But every time a dragon showed up, the dragons looked unbelievable, and some basically movie level visual effects.
Okay, and Andor was 12 episodes. I think they're a little longer, those episodes, and it cost $250 million. So Andor is $250 million. Acolyte is $180 million. And House of Dragon season 2 got a budget increase, and they were around roughly $20 million an episode, bringing it to roughly $160 million for the season. So $160 million for a season where I didn't hear anyone complain about it until the finale. People just saying that nothing happened in House of Dragon. $180 million for the Acolyte, which is like, I didn't even bother going on YouTube to watch videos. I saw headlines, I saw tweets, and then $250 million for Andor, which people really, really loved or felt really wasn't Star Wars and really didn't belong in Star Wars. For the most part, though, I think people loved it.
I'm actually shocked when you mentioned that Andor was that expensive of a budgeted show. I mean, I guess it's that expensive because it's 12 episodes.
It's 12 episodes. Yeah, I think Acolyte actually costs more per episode than Andor.
Yeah,
I believe.
Makes sense.
So this is an issue now. And Disney they're upping their price obviously on streaming. Apparently their numbers are terrible on their subscribers now. Like, they're one of the lower ones. And they're spending way too much money on these Star Wars shows that I don't know. Like, the ratings for Acolyte weren't very good. The ratings for I think Ahsoka were just above Acolyte. Barely. Like, they're not crushing it the way Mandalorian season 1 and season 2. And I'm guessing season 3 for the most part probably crushed it because it was riding high on season 1 and 2. Boba Fett probably did well too because it's also riding high on Mandalorian. Like, they could ride on those coattails, and Kenobi has Ewan McGregor coming back. So, how do they justify spending all this money? And then House of Dragon, which everybody loves, it'll probably win a few Emmys, I'm guessing, Rob. I don't know. I think, does it still win Emmys, that show? Does it?
I don't know if it won for the previous season, but I don't know. It seems like, from my understanding, Shogun seems to be the big favorite, at least in the Emmys this year.
Right. Okay. Shogun's this year. Yeah. Okay. Shogun.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know what the budget for Shogun is.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to watching it when I do.
But they need to, and what they're doing this with the Mando and Grogu movie. The budget for Shogun, $250 million for Shogun. $22 million. It was supposed to be $12 million an episode and went to $22 million an episode for Shogun.
Wow.
Insane. And they got the other thing too is that was a Hulu show, which is on Disney Plus. But like, how do you spend that much money on these shows? I like House of Dragon. I think they can justify. You have subscribers on HBO. You have subscribers on Max. That probably works. You can get the ads and all that. But it just seems like a lot of money, and people seem to be enjoying House of Dragon more. And then, and how are they able to make 60-minute episodes, and these Disney ones can't?
Yeah, I don't know. It's mind boggling me a little bit. In general, just the streaming model seems to be a very odd thing that every studio seems to be jumping in on, right? Like they're jumping in for the streaming wars. Sony's one of the few ones that's just sitting back. It's like, hey, we're gonna be arms dealers. We're gonna sell our content for the streamers, and we're gonna make our money from different things. So yeah, it's odd. And in the case of Disney, if you're talking about other things that they have to pay for, I mean, soon they're gonna have to dish out billions of dollars to Comcast still for Hulu, right? Because they still need to pay an extra premium for that. So they'll probably wind up having to deal out another $5 or $10 billion to them just for buying out their stock in Hulu. So yeah, no wonder these prices are going up. Disney Plus will probably go up again next year.
Yeah, Dale just brought up a point that I was about to say. Inflation in general. I mean, I have a lot of money in the stock market, and Monday was a horrible day. It was all over the world. I mean, it's going up. I had burger and fries at McDonald's the other day. It was over $10. So
that's crazy. But also, you know what? Spend less money on these shows, and you don't have to charge me so much. Maybe that's another way to look. Like it's all crazy. Inflation. Obviously, these things cost more. But I know people hate the volume now. But I also think they've like Mando season 1, our eyes were tricked. We didn't know. Then they showed us about it. Then everybody's like, all I can see is the volume. Every time I watch, I can see the volume. Because people, they're idiots. But the thing is, you have this device that can save you a ton of time and money. And over time, cinematographers learn how to utilize it a lot more effectively and to their advantage, not disadvantage, which happened. I think in Kenobi's the one I think really kind of worked to his disadvantage in Kenobi. So why, and they're doing that with Mando and Grogu because the budget of Mando and Grogu is going to be really low. I think it's going to be lower than the Acolyte budget. It's lower than Andor and Acolyte's budget. I believe we're looking at, let me type it in here, Mando and Grogu budget. $120 million for a theatrical movie that'll make money on Disney Plus, that'll make money on 4K, on DVD, probably on VHS. I'm probably going to buy it on VHS. Like it's going to make, this thing's going to make a profit. They're going to have a stupid popcorn bucket that people are going to shell out $1,000 to buy because people are sheep and they need popcorn buckets. I don't get the hype over popcorn.
What's it going to be, James? I'm asking your prediction right now.
They're going to repurpose the Wolverine ones that didn't sell, and they're just going to paint Baby Yoda's face on it, and the ears will be the Wolverine. A Mandalorian popcorn bucket. Honestly, you just make it Mando's helmet. And
I know. Just turn it upside down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very easy to
That's
do.
That's the easy one.
How do you buying a Mando and Grogu popcorn bucket?
No, yeah, actually, my first job was in a movie theater, and the reason why they sell them, they're so expensive. They only make money at concession stands. They don't make money off the movie tickets. That all goes to the studios. It's kind of like when you go to a gas station. Gas stations don't make movie off of the
gas.
Gas. They make it out of the overpriced food. Yeah, and again, they'll beat me to it. They're gonna say it's $120 million, but it's gonna cost a lot more than that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of these big budget blockbusters, a lot of times seem to go over budget anyway. So it might, but Jon Favreau's a pro, so it'll probably maybe at most be 140, I would guess. Like, I can't imagine it ballooning more than
unless they're like, you're not going over budget. Unless they say you are not going over budget on this one, hit 120 and make it that. I'm looking forward to that movie. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if I think, the hype over Baby Yoda isn't what it was a couple years ago, but it'll be intriguing to see when it hits that movie theater in May, what we're going to get. I'm really looking forward to it. I love those characters. I'll go anywhere with Mando. He's my boy. I was kind of like I was like, yeah, whatever, Mandalorian. I don't really care. And now I'm like, yeah, it's still, when we do our rankings of the shows, Mandalorian was my number one ranked above Andor, because I think it just has season one. It's only season ones we talk about, but it had like a little pulpy flair to it that I loved. And the egg episode is still my favorite episode of anything that has been on Disney Plus, original on Disney Plus. I love that egg episode to death. But the eye, is it the eye episode of Andor with the lights? That one was phenomenal too. That one's up there on me as well. I love that episode.
That should have been in a theater.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah.
I mean, I have a question. Have you gone back and watched The Acolyte all at once?
Oh no, Brock has. I don't know if Rob, you have.
No.
I'll tell you what. I give you a challenge to do that. I will tell you, it makes the story a whole lot better. Same thing with Mando season 3. And the reason I know that is because my sister does not have Disney, because all she wants to do is watch these shows. So we'll have a girls' weekend. I'll go over and we'll binge watch. And that's another. I think that's part of the issue of the show. And I think we brought this up 1,000 times. These shows, a lot of them are a binge watching show in a weekly format.
Yeah, you know how I feel about that.
These episodes are so much better if you watch them all at once. I guarantee it.
So here's a question for Rob. Sorry, Rob, I'm going to cut you off because you're going to answer, but I need to hear this part too. You can do a twofer on this one.
Okay.
House of Dragon. How do they? Is it weekly or is it better a binge watch? How do they make it weekly if it is weekly? Like what separates that from what we're getting?
So here's my opinion on it. Obviously, when you're talking about television shows, for the longest time, they were on broadcast television. That's the way you'd watch them. Then Netflix came along and they started introducing binging, and people were all about binging and things like that. But then now these other streaming services start jumping in. Some of them are binge like all their shows, throw down all their shows at once. Other ones do them per episode. For me, it's really, and this is a very difficult thing for a studio to 100% know how buzzy your show is going to be. But for me, if your show is phenomenal and every episode's like a talking point, I want to watch it week after week, because then when I watch the episode, I can go over to a friend. It's like, oh, have you seen that episode? Talk about the episode, just basically gush on how good it was. Think about where the episode season's going from then on, and that's it. But when a show drops all at once, that's when it's kind of like, okay, we can talk about the season all together all at once, and then that's kind of about it. Let's look forward to season 3 or 2 or whatever that comes out, right? I thought it was very interesting with the most recent season of Stranger Things. I thought they did a very cool thing where they dropped their first whole bunch of episodes, stopped, and then came back in 2 months, because at least you gave time for everyone to watch those first group of episodes, binge it, and then end on a big cliffhanger, and then you get to see more in a month or 2. So I don't know. That's where I think it just kind of really depends. If your show, like when Disney Plus first dropped and Mandalorian was one of the first things on there, that was buzzworthy TV. That one kept the conversation going for 9 weeks. People would just keep talking about it. You got shows that just drop on Netflix for the whole thing right off the bat. People talk about it for a week or 2 weeks, and then that's it. That's where the conversation seems to end. So I think when you have something to really, really talk about, it's very beneficial to them to go weekly with their episodes, because then you can be the talk for however long. And that even happened after Mando when Marvel first dropped WandaVision, right? And that was a talking point, like every week talking about a WandaVision for Marvel fans. And that's the way it was. It was event television, and they had the conversation going for 10 weeks or whatever that one was. So I don't know. It's something really hard to do, because I'm sure that there were a lot of Disney execs that were like, hey, people are going to love this Acolyte show. We read the scripts. This sounds really good. We've seen a couple episodes. This sounds really good too. But then, they wouldn't have expected that. It's like, oh, maybe this is one to just drop all at once. They've had some foresight with that, like going back to Marvel again. They did the Echo show earlier this year, dropped it all at once, And so they had a sixth sense there, thinking that, maybe this would not be a good show to do weekly. But I think they have to experiment more with that, being like, okay, this show's all dropping at once. This show's going weekly. I think they have to start having a little bit more foresight with those types of things.
Well, I'm probably like dating myself, but I remember growing up, like everybody had to watch Dallas or Dynasty every week, but those were hour-long shows. So I mean, you could get a story in 1 week. Now we're doing this science fiction. We're just cramming it into 20-minute or 30-minute episodes. There's sometimes there's not enough room to tell the story you want to tell. And like I said, it's more like a movie you've just cut up. I don't know. The He-Man and She-Ra movie was released in theaters, and then the following fall, it was like it cut up into 5 episodes and made a mini series into the She-Ra. It's like that's what Lucasfilm does. They take a movie and then they just cut it up into a mini series and put it on their channel.
So it feels like a lot of these have been, but like I said, the Acolyte, there's a lot of good. I feel like there's a lot of good in there. Like Kenobi, for all of its flaws, to me, it's like it had a lot of really cool lore and world building within it, and they have elements. It's either like take a little bit more time to develop what you're doing, or is it a mandate on Disney's part, on Lucas's part? Like, what is it? Is it like you can only do 8 episodes and they have to be this long? Because if you do any more and they're any longer, then it could be a movie. And why don't we just make it? And we don't want it to be a movie because we want the movies to be the movies and they've got to be special. Like, is there something happening there where where they want that separation? It just gets frustrated because when people compare Star Wars to Game of Thrones and House of Dragons and stuff, it's like, and Star Wars isn't as good, I haven't seen it, like, but this is what people are saying. Like, it's not as good, and the House of Dragons is better and it's stronger and it's what Star Wars should be. Is like, but probably not. But also, like, but Star Wars should be the king of the mountain. You know what I mean? Like, a Star Wars should be the cream of the crop, and somehow it's become like almost a punchline. Like, people, when you get, it's like Ahsoka and Kenobi, everybody got stabbed with lightsabers. It's like the rules changed from episode to episode, and thank goodness Jackie died. Thank goodness Jackie died, and she she could have been a better character if she had got developed before she died. But it's like, oh gosh, she didn't come back. Thank you for this, for confirming that lightsabers are actually dangerous weapons.
Or we find out that Jackie's brain's actually been in R2 this whole time.
Well, it was like a thing where, James, you and I recently talked a little bit about Scream a little bit, right? And for the most part in those movies, like, when there's a death scene, that person's most of the time dead, right? They do
most of the time.
They do some exceptions with certain ones, and other ones are done on purpose. But you literally talk, if you're a Scream fan, you know exactly what I'm going to say. The last movie, Scream 6, those knives that they used to kill certain people might as well have been lightsabers from those ones, because every time they seem to stab somebody or gut somebody or whatever it would be, and without me getting too graphic beyond that, it was like nobody's dying from this stuff. It's like every time this killer is going on the prowl and going to kill somebody, making a phone call and getting ready to kill them, he's unsuccessful almost every time in that movie because they survived the attack.
Yeah, and I think Scream 7 is going to be a bit of a reboot again, focusing, and I think that might be a good thing because I actually really enjoyed Scream 6, but
Patrick Dempsey's coming back.
I heard he's not anymore, but I think, but it's well, he might. Who knows? It's all rumor, but I want him to. Like, where has he been anyway? I love that. I really like Scream 6 a lot. But yeah, the no one died. Like, everyone gets stabbed. I'm like, yeah, fine. It's a flesh wound. Are you in pain? Nah. But you're bleeding. Nah, it's okay. Yeah. And so that was very frustrating. Which is, the lightsabers are equally frustrating, and they always seem to like just miss. It's like The Godfather, like they just missed all the major artery. Like how is that possible? So that's frustrating. But but again, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I think I'm going to say this on a show on Friday that is going up, but I think I think honestly, like Star Wars needs to take a breath, just needs to step back and say, okay, let's regroup for a second. They've got Andor coming out, they got Mando and Grogu happening. They have enough to keep us satisfied for a while. I think they need to just sit back, relax, and just say, hey, what are we doing? What is the plan of what we're doing? And what are the rules in the Star Wars galaxy? Because the rules that George Lucas had have slowly changed and evolved, and they changed with him. He started the change, and now the new era, the DE, Star Wars DE, Disney era. But now they've changed some rules, right? Like the lightsaber bleeding, like Heidi brought up lightsaber, the lightsaber bleeding, which I thought half looked cool, half didn't, whatever. But like the lightsaber bleed, like there's little things that are starting to change. So sit down, figure out your rules, and then decide where do you want to go. Like, what is the direction? And sorry, yes, I also forgot Skeleton Crew's coming out. By the way, I'm really excited for Skeleton Crew. I think those pictures, people are flocking on them, but I think they look great. I got more of an Explorers vibe. I said on the show that you can watch on the Unleashed last week. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Explorers with Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. Fantastic movie. I got more of a vibe from that, which is exactly the tone that they kind of said they're going to set out. People are afraid that it's going to be a children's show, but I don't think it's going to be a children's show. I think it is going to be. It won't be as dark as Stranger Things, but I think we're going to get a fun adventure. Is it a children's movie? No, it's not. So this doesn't have to be just especially for kids, right? It could be for everybody, but it's about a group of kids. And the one thing for me, though, guys, and I'll let you two speak to this too, is there needs to be peril. There has to be stakes. We have to feel like the lives of these kids are in danger when we're watching it. We don't want anything to happen to them, and hopefully nothing happens to them. But we have to feel like there's a possibility that at some point Jude Law can help them. And that's what we need, and that's what Star Wars desperately needs. And Jackie and Yord, thank you.
Thank you for your service.
I think Star Wars is just Lucasfilm are just scared. I think what happened was there's a lot of backlash against Solo, and they get cold feet. I don't think they're doing the best they can. I think they're it's almost like they're thinking too much about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're probably they almost need to like do the Marvel thing that DC has finally done with James Gunn and just kind of have like almost a writer's room, like an entire writer's room where they can just plot everything out and, like James said, come up with, their own rules to their universe and what they will do and what they won't do. And then go off and start writing their projects, whatever they're going to be, whatever they choose to tell, whatever stories they choose to tell. Right. So, you got someone like John Watts, who's it's John Watts, right? That's Skeleton Crew, right? Did I not misremember? Yep. Yeah. So for him, it's like, he'd have the outlines as to, not necessarily what his story is going to be, but the things that he should do or should do. Just those types of like bits of clarity would help so much. And I mean, you said it, James, like, Star Wars is one of the creams of the crop. They're, when it comes to franchises, they're one of the biggest, and they should be, be more acclaimed. I mean, when we talk about the show that, we've been talking about this whole time, Andor, Andor did get some acclaim out of it, right? Andor got 8 Emmy nominations out of it. So, they do have some acclaim behind it. And, if when season 2 comes out next year, hopefully as planned, it will deliver the same quality of television that season 1 did. And before we know it, maybe it will also get 8 Emmy nominations, maybe even more. Maybe this cast will start getting recognition. Maybe Stellan Skarsgård will find himself as a supporting actor nom. Like those types of things would just do so much huge stuff for the Star Wars in general, because it'll start getting heavy acclaim from there. It's like people that might not be as big fans of Star Wars may watch this one because, yeah, it's Star Wars adjacent, but it's not really, it resembles the same things a lot of other Star Wars do, right? You know, you don't get lightsabers, you don't get as many ship battles as you would in other ones. You got a couple, and maybe you'll get more in season 2. But in general, just getting other people hyped about Star Wars again, that Force Awakens did at first, to get some Star Wars fans on the board. So yeah, they just need to find that consistency back and find that buzz around Star Wars yet again.
Well, I mean, I just say I don't. People think I didn't like the Acolyte. I did like the Acolyte very much. It just wasn't my favorite. And actually, like I said, but I've said 1,000 times. I think Kymir is the most interesting character, or at least the most interesting villain in Star Wars in a long time. I mean, he's a guy with a personality. And Andor, what you're talking about, there wasn't a lot of like lightsabers or space fights, but it saved its big Easter egg for the closing credits scene, showing that what the prisoners had been working on was the laser disc for the Death Star. So basically, Andor helped build the weapon that eventually ended up killing him at the end of Rogue One. Spoiler alert.
Whoa! Here's a question. So you look at Andor. Andor, how would you describe Andor? Like a drama, like a sci-fi drama.
Yeah.
Acolyte, I would still say is YA. We got Skeleton Crew coming, which is going to be like kids friendly, whatever. And then you have
Mandalorian's almost a Western.
Yeah, Western. So these are all different genres. Is this good for Star Wars, or is it bad, or is Star Wars its own genre, and should it maybe not care too much to become, a kids genre, YA genre? It should just be the Star Wars genre itself. Is it good? Is this a negative or a positive for Star Wars in your opinion? Your opinions.
I mean, for me, when you talk about the heyday of other things that Disney owns, right? You talk about the heyday of something like Marvel. Yet again, coming back to Marvel again, but I'm gonna shortly go on this one more time. One of the things that they would say, and I don't necessarily fully agree with, and I know you don't do either, James, but what they would say about those earlier MCU movies, like in Phase 2, you'd have something like Ant-Man. They would say that's like, oh, it's a superhero movie, but it's also a heist movie, right? And they would say, oh, Captain America Winter Soldier, it's not only a superhero movie, but it's also a political thriller, right? They seem to meld certain genres in with it in general. And I think the more successful ones, like, something like Mandalorian, and talking about it being like a Western, and, borderline Kurosawa movies, those are things that George himself took inspiration from, right? Like, in terms of itself. So I think anything can work, but whether you want to take the chance and whether you have faith that it can be as good as it can be by taking that influence is really up for grabs. I mean, Andor being a drama worked, but maybe not for all Star Wars fans, right? There's plenty of Star Wars fans on this channel and in general just that like Andor and think it's a good show, but not necessarily one of their favorites because it's less Star Warsy than they might want. So it does have the success, but whether it will have any full-on mainstream success is still to be decided. And so in general, I just think, yeah, you can take some chances and be like, oh, the next one. I mean, I was about to mention it, but it would be kind of funny if they just, did a little comedy Star Wars show. I don't know if they would ever actually do that, but
they did.
The Legos.
Oh, the Legos. Yeah, okay.
And they did Detours too, the Seth Green Detours show.
I was more thinking live action. Sorry.
They need to bring that one back.
Actually, I think Solo was originally more of a comedy, and that's when they came and shut it down and had and brought
Ace Ventura Solo, right? Is what they would say.
Yeah. Well, no, they brought in Ron Howard, and he totally revamped it, which is ironic since he's good friends with George Lucas, and George Lucas wanted him to direct the Star Wars film anyway. So, actually, I guess you could say the holiday special.
In the wrong ways, it's a comedy. In the wrong ways.
I mean, yeah, the closest you have to official Disney comedy would be Lego Star Wars, but.
Let's look at the chat. We got Ron Prasak came in and he asked, is Plagueis meant to be the apprentice during the Acolyte? I think he is the master, crouching over and watching the stranger Chimere, and seeing that Chimere now has an apprentice, because we know something about the Sith, and that's that there's only two, right? A master and apprentice, but the apprentice is always looking to find their own apprentice so that they can take down their master. And I think that's what Plagueis is looking on at, or Plagueis is looking on at the virgins in the Force, and he wants to learn how to create life. But I don't think that he is the apprentice. I think Plagueis is the master in that show.
Well, I kind of get the feeling that Chimere might be the apprentice, but I don't think he wants to follow that path. Because he even said he didn't want rules of the Jedi. I assume he doesn't want rules of the Sith. And there's, I brought this up the last time. There is an attraction between him and the character of Osha that originally they were going to make out, but they decided, hey, this guy just killed all our friends. That's a little too fast. We'll just have them hold hands. A Sith and apprentice would never fall in love because one eventually has to kill the other. So I think maybe he's a Sith, but I think that they're going to start the Knights of Ren. That's my personal theory, because I don't think he wants to stick with a Sith or the Jedi. And you know what? Neither did Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren didn't want anything to do with the Sith or the Jedi. Kylo Ren is not a Sith. He is a Dark Jedi.
Well, it's clearly just going to be our new. It's just going to be our new Raylo, right? That's what we're going to do if it continues.
No, it's official. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go back and watch episode 5 with the audio on. Believe me, it reads like a romance novel.
Yeah.
Episode 6. Hi, episode 6.
Oh, 6, sorry.
Rob, anything else you want to say?
Well, I mean, I still don't know what Plagueis' part will be, if he'll be the master or whatnot. I still think they have a ball they're waiting to drop in terms of the whereabouts of the second mother. And especially with the comments that they've made in the past, with the way that he hovered down and being like, oh, my mother used to be able to do things like that, right? Like the hovering. So I think that they still have something to reveal between Chimere and the second mother. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Plagueis' connections to this whole thing's going to be, whether he is actually the master or whether he's just another Sith just hanging out on that planet or something like that. I have no idea.
Hope you like reading books and comics, because I think that's where you're going to have to get the answer for those ones, because I don't think season 2 is coming. And look,
I'm not reading that.
Season 2. I would be down for a season 2 though, because where it ended is where I thought the show was going to start, basically. So I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. Let's see where these characters go. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Sooner Thrawn has a question about Skeleton Crew. Will a kid in Skeleton Crew be Force sensitive? We know.
Yes.
I think we know that. Well,
Yes.
Ivy already answered it. So
It'll be
Jude
Brown.
Law is going to be a Jedi. Which one?
It'll be Broom Kid. He'll be back.
Broom Kid's back. I don't think he's
No.
born yet when Skeleton Crew.
No, he's not. It'll be that same portal that Ahsoka was pulled through from the past. They're just going to pull him from the future and pull him into the past.
Yeah, it's going to be Force sensitive.
Sooner Thrawn also says that Osha and Chimere will turn on Plagueis. They will get killed, and then he finds Sidious. Here's a question, because we don't know how old Chimere is. His name actually Chimere, or is it the Stranger? Because they started, once he became like the dark guy, the bad guy, they started calling him the Stranger on like social media, I think, on the official site. So
it's like a Clark Kent and Superman thing. That's
yeah.
that.
Only this one was way more obvious. But like, we don't know how old he is. That was another, like, that was intriguing also.
What was the thing that I pointed out to you, James? This is just going back to a specific episode where they were first going into the forest over there. I just said to you, James, like, James, you literally see him take the lightsaber and put it into his bag. I'm like, he's the Stranger.
Yeah.
So, it's what I just thought immediately. Like, you literally see that happen. I'm just like, oh my God. Could they make this more obvious? Sorry, but continue. What was your question again?
Oh, I mean, I figured that out when they started fighting, and he was able to take her on. So I was like, that guy is not the idiot he's pretending to be if he can handle her.
Well, even when he was pretending to be the idiot, he was still able to tell the two sisters apart.
Right.
Better than Saul could.
Right. He was actually the Darth Jar Jar theory. He was what they wanted Darth Jar Jar to be. That was that done right, because he was good at being the fool, and then it wasn't shocking reveal, but you could believe that this guy could be a fun fool and also a dark Jedi user, dark Force user as well.
Do you think, looking at the Acolyte, because it's the most recent, and then obviously what Boba Fett started to do, Obi-Wan Kenobi, for what it is, and this is the title of the show, do you think Star Wars relies a little bit too much on the nostalgia? Are they trying too hard with, like Baby Yoda is Baby? I think Baby Yoda works, but do they try too hard to remind you? Like, even if you think of like The Force Awakens, there's little Easter eggs in there, the nostalgia stuff. Finn on the Falcon, he has the orb, the Jedi orb thing. I don't know. There's someone will tell me what it's called. But do you think that they rely too heavily on those, and that maybe to be like the Acolyte, like never kind of Yoda shows up at the end. They never really kind of escape Star Wars nostalgia. Is that an issue? Is it something that they're doing too much of? Should they stay away from it, or are you okay with how they're utilizing the nostalgia factor of it all?
I'm okay if it fits the story. Like season 2 of Mandalorian. Yeah, we get Luke, and wow, that's fan service like you can't believe, but that makes sense. Who else was going to show up?
Yeah.
Who else got Baby Yoda's call? So that makes total sense that he shows up. So I mean, fan service, if it makes sense, then I'm for it. If it's just fan service for fan service sake, then you don't have a story. You just have something. Just let's throw much fan service in here and get people excited. It's not going to work. Going back to Rogue One, when they're on Yavin, the moon of they're on Yavin. The moon of the moon of Yavin. Yavin 4. They're on Yavin 4. I'm sorry. Yavin 4. Okay, they're on Yavin 4. I'm sorry. And you see R2D2 and C3PO. That makes sense there. It's an Easter egg. It's fan service we threw in, but it makes sense you see them. It makes sense that you see Leia's dad talking to the rebels. When they're on Jedha and they run into the two guys who talk smack to Luke, there was no reason for them to be there.
You know who should have been on Yavin? Jar Jar.
Why not?
That's what you need to bring. I look. We're talking about this, Rob. I'm gonna let you go in a second, but I think Jar Jar is a character. Like, they brought back Ahmed Best, and it was great, and everybody loved it. Yeah. But I think Jar Jar is a character you gotta bring back. I know he's in the afterlife. Is afterlife?
He's dead. He's in the afterlife.
Is it Star Wars Afterlife? Is that what the hell is it called?
I'm not sure.
Is it Afterlife? Anyways, in the Star Wars book, they did the trilogy of books that led up to the Force Awakens, but they didn't at all. But in one of them, there's a side story where he's on Naboo and he's a street performer on Naboo, and it's a sad. He's like, "Oh, Misa did the." But I think, honestly, I think they need to bring Jar Jar back. Misa Jar Jar Binks needs to come back, but he doesn't need to even really speak, because I know that's one of the big issues with Jar Jar. But they need to bring Jar Jar back, and they need to find a way to give him his due, to give him his moment. And I think in Rogue One, honestly, if he just kind of showed up and he was like with Bail Organa or something, and you're like, oh, he's part of, like, he wants to correct what he did. Or the flip side is you make him the big bad in the Rey movie. Rob, too much nostalgia in Star Wars?
Yeah, in some cases, yes. I think Star Wars shouldn't do away with it entirely. But again, going back to what she said, we shouldn't be throwing it away.
Aftermath.
Aftermath. There you go.
Afterlife.
Going back to a movie that just happened not too long ago, you had Deadpool and Wolverine, and you and I talked about this, James, where we felt like, and a lot of people felt like, that the people they chose to include in that movie were story reasons, and there was reasons for them to be there in general. And when that happens, I think you're completely fine. And you go to other movies, you know, Marvel doing the multiverse saga. You got Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man. That makes a lot of sense in general. So when you have real reasons for those characters to be there, I think it makes sense a lot. And especially even if it's not even characters that appeared in what Heidi mentioned with the end of Andor. It not being a character, it just being revealed that that's what they were working on. They were working on parts of the Death Star this whole time. Things like that are just like added extra bits of information that connects the larger Star Wars universe, but doesn't make the Star Wars universe smaller. And that's the worst part. It's like when you keep, you know, seeing this person there and then this person from this project, this person from that project, it makes the entire Star Wars galaxy look small because everybody's running into everybody. And I think it's important when you can just tell your story and then connect it to Star Wars in one way or another. That makes sense as well. But you got to be doing your own thing at the same time.
I know something I would like to see, and mainly because we saw it in Obi-Wan, where we finally saw Alderaan, we saw young Leia, we saw the Prince Consort, we saw the Queen, we saw her adopted parents, her life on Alderaan. It's not because I'm not a sadist. I'm just saying I would like to see like season 2 Andor, and like the after credit scene, like, you know, they showed the Death Star. I would like to see Bale and his wife on their terrace, and just this dark shadow coming over them, and you know what's about to happen.
I'm just getting dark. You know what? That's a good point, because
that would be a kind of like what Hosni and Prime.
Yeah, which Hosni and Prime for me fell flat because it was like, who cares about Hosni and Prime? Alderaan though would be like, that would gut you. I think what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say, you don't even see the planet shot. You just see them there. They're holding each other. They're worried about Leia. All of a sudden, you just see the shadow, and you know what it is, but you don't. And it just cuts. You know they're about to get killed. But
they did. I think that's it. I think, you know, because I've heard people complain that, you know, the Star Wars stories we're getting Disney Plus are all basically on the same timeline and this and that. But for me, and I've said this so many times, but I really feel like these shows are the books we got in the 90s. I like when they're like, these are little side stories. These are little side stories for you to enjoy, to get you through until the movie hits the theater in 400,000 years from now. Like, they're just little bits. They don't need to be like the big epic. Yeah, if we're lucky, doesn't need to be a big epic event. I mean, you know, it's nice, but at the same time, it can be a nice, solid side story. This is a book I would have read in 1997. That's what I look for these, and I like those ideas of just little stories like that. Because, like Rob, your point about shrinking the universe, we'll do a flying casual on that in the future, because I think that's a good topic to talk about. Where it's important, because you don't want the universe, the galaxy, to feel small, but also you want to feel like it's the same friggin' galaxy that you've had, and that's why you bring Ki-Adi-Mundi in. We're not talking about it. We're going to talk about Jar Jar. Oh no. Misa Jar Jar Binks. Misa no have it, Boba.
I mean, I've said this 1,000 times. It would be hard to do it in live action, and I want to see something where Leia had to, in canon, meet Anakin Skywalker. Now, in my head canon, it's when she died and she passed over, and he met her, and he helped her reach out to her son to save him. And that was her final trial, and she became a Jedi when she died to save her son. Her final trial would be that she had to face Anakin. I want to know what that conversation was about, because I know, like, in Bloodlines and all that, she wanted nothing to do with him. She said, Bail Organa's my father. Anakin Skywalker tortured me. I don't. But I want to see what that conversation would be like. You know, a robot chicken, he goes and buys her a Ziggy card, but
I watch that. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. We've been on for an hour. We're taking too much of your time. Heidi, do you want to promote any of your books,
oh yeah, yeah, I just go to.
or do you want to promote Andrew's books?
No, that's okay. Just go to. Well, if you're looking for a good table leveler, you know, if you got that one short leg, I would highly suggest side scroller. But you know, if you just want to go to Amazon.com, you look up Andrighton or my real name Heidi Fetter, and if you're 18 or older, so.
Yes, important detail not to be missed.
For me, I guess you know, you if you go on to Digital Charcuterie, our sister channel, you do get to see me do my out of theater reaction for when I saw Deadpool Wolverine at the premiere, and then you also get my reactions to the show that James mentioned, Batman: The Cape Crusader. I do it after every 2 episodes. There's basically a reaction for each of those ones. I'm also going to release a full season reaction because ultimately, as much as I didn't care for the very first episode, the show got greater as it went. So you'll hear my full reactions for the entire season, and then looking forward to season 2. We'll see how that turns out.
A show that has 22-minute episodes and full character developments for so many characters. You know, can we just, sorry, Heidi, I didn't find Batman was in the background as much as people are complaining about. He's always in the show. Yeah, he shows up all the time. I'm like, people are like, he's not even the main character. I'm like, I mean, he's there. I don't know. I've never had that problem with it.
I mean, there's like a couple episodes maybe he was more of a secondary character or didn't appear in certain ones, but I mean, he's really at the front of the story in several of the episodes. He's definitely the resolution to almost all those episodes as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if Mr. Rogers was premiering now instead of the 1960s, the internet would hate him. So
easily. Yeah.
You know Mr. Rogers, right?
Heidi,
Tom Hanks.
Him, Mr. Rogers, and Canada's sweetheart, Mr. Dress Up, were besties.
Yeah.
And
I saw a documentary about that.
Yeah, okay, there you go. We had Mr. Rogers here. I grew up with Mr. Rogers and Mr. Dress Up and the Friendly Giant.
Well,
Google that one.
The Canadian show that saved Nickelodeon. You can't do that on television.
You can't do that on television, or don't get it. You'll get slimed. We will all get slimed.
It saved Nickelodeon.
My parents hated that show with an absolute passion, and I loved it. And the kids were like, remember when they were like in the locker and they come out of the locker and talk to each other and then shut the locker? Such a weird, and the janitor. What a weird show.
That was laughing. They copied laugh. In fact, the first scene, if they copied laugh,
suck it to me.
Well, that would make sense, but it was for kids.
In fact, I think the first season before it was you can't do that on television. When they tried to make it national in Canada, they got Ruth Buzzy.
Yeah.
Who was in the original laughing.
Well, when you're a kid, you don't know what you're watching. You just know that someone's about to get slimed.
Yeah, that's why Nickelodeon, their colors are orange and green because they copied the orange carpet from You Can't Do That on Television.
Amazing.
The real question is which one of us is going to get slimed here? That's the real question.
We're going to go watch Romper Room. I see Rob and Heidi. Someone's got to know Romper Room. DiCaprio was on Romper Room. DiCaprio was on Romper Room.
He never mentioned my name on my birthday.
I don't remember hearing James. I'm sure they did, but I remember like they never said my name. That's pretty. I like that the one guy there was like one character on it that I can't remember. I had a Romper Room book also. Sorry, Rob, you're too young for Romper Room.
Do you remember Zoom?
Which one?
Zoom.
No.
That was a show that was also on PBS. So with kids in these striped shirts would.
Zoom. I gotta look it up. I don't
I
remember
remember
that.
every day. It was Sesame Street. I love the Electric Company. Oh my god. Then we had Mr. Rogers and then Zoom.
If anyone's still in the comments, let us know. Still watching us.
There's no one left. They've all said goodnight. And on that note, we should say goodnight. Check out Heidi's books. Go to Amazon. Heidi, I'll put a link in the description. Rob Digital Charcuterie for his Batman reaction and movie reactions and other reactions. It's been so much fun, everybody. Thanks for watching us. We gotta say this at the beginning, I forgot. Give us a like and a subscribe. And until next time, may the force of others be with you.
Bags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.